a well-known NGO in this space that we're able to talk about natural refrigerants. Regarding natural refrigerants, hands up if you were here 3 years ago. Okay, now, if you were here 3 years ago, did you see a lot of natural refrigerants then? Yeah. What about this time round? Would I be right in assuming that basically they're everywhere? Everyone has natural refrigerants, everyone has CO2, everyone has hydrocarbons. Yeah, is that true? Would that be fair to say? That's pretty cool. I remember the first time I came to EuroShop 12 years ago, there were only 2 companies that had natural refrigerants then. Now everyone has them. Did anyone see any HFC systems? Hands up if you saw HFC systems. Think about that. They've gone. They're obviously in the back room. They're still being discussed when you talk in business. But in terms of showcasing technology, they're not here anymore. And this is the show for food retail globally. It shouldn't be called EuroShop. It should be called Global Shop. I don't know if that's a brand, but hopefully we won't get in trouble for saying it. But yeah, it's basically all the global trends. And it's all going natural. So personally, I'm very happy to see that. It's very exciting. And we're obviously very happy to partner up with EPTA because they have some interesting solutions. They're going to learn about FTE or FTE 0.0. So that will be interesting to learn more about what that means. So yeah, without much further ado, I'll introduce myself. My name's disappeared. So my name is Mark Chassereau. I run the company called Sheco. I assume most of you know Sheco. Do people know who Sheco is? We're kind of an accelerator in the natural refrigerant space. We've been around for 15 years. We work globally. We focus on all natural refrigerant solutions. We focus mostly on commercial industrial refrigeration, but we're already starting to focus on air conditioning because we see that as the next market to transition to natural refrigerants. It's a long way away, a very long way away, but we're excited to talk to a lot of the players here who are seeing opportunities in air conditioning, leveraging the know-how that they've built up in refrigeration. So that's going to be quite exciting. Maybe a question for William about that. I don't know if you're ready to answer that one. Maybe you can...
It's on,
Yes.
Okay. Try me.
Yeah. So, I've been talking to a number of players here, and they have some cutting-edge solutions for refrigeration. And then I'm asking them, have you been developing chillers for air conditioning using CO2 or hydrocarbons? And actually, quite a few of them are planning this. Mm-hmm. What about EPTA? I know this is not your space, but it's a big market, and there's a big opportunity, and maybe there's some know-how that you can leverage.
Sure.
I know it's a bit of a curveball I'm throwing at you, but still.
No, it's not. I mean, we are, of course, ahead of the curve in terms of developing technologies. What we have today on the table is really a lot to be working at.
Sure.
So what we are doing is actually concentrating on our core and make this successful before we move into other ventures.
Okay.
So the core is still so big and still yet so much to be done that this is our focus today.
Sure.
We feel we are ready to push in the core to make it even more successful. And this is where we should be focusing our efforts.
Yes, no,
Fair
thank
enough?
you. Yeah, no, that's fair, that's fair. I'll be asking you that question every year, though. Just be aware.
Oh, I'll
so
be here.
hopefully at one point you'll be saying, okay, now the core has evolved. But yeah, I agree. We have to focus on making commercial refrigeration a success. And it's definitely taking off in Europe. I think that's a no-brainer now. But what's exciting is to see how that will take off around the world. And we're seeing pockets of growth in other markets. And EPTA, with a recent acquisition in the US, has a big opportunity to take the market over there. So yeah, that'll be exciting to see. We see some trends, some big trends. Obviously, natural refrigerants is one of those. We've talked about how there's a transition from HFCs or synthetic refrigerants to natural refrigerants. And that's happening at different speeds in different markets around the world. But what we also see is there's some new business model thinking coming, and we call that servitization or cooling as a service. So we see this type of thinking about how we can bring more efficient technology using natural refrigerants that sometimes are more expensive in certain markets, especially in the developing world. How can we use this new business model thinking and bring that to, say, South Africa or Latin America more, faster, so that you remove the capex issue? And that's going to be an interesting dynamic that we expect to see coming in the next few years in this market, to bring natural refrigerants faster to market. And then we also see more and more systems smarter, more interconnected, more predictive, and that's going to definitely improve efficiencies. And all of these trends, digitalization, servitization, and natural refrigerants, are all going to reinforce each other. So we think this is quite an exciting time to be in this space. And yes, commercial refrigeration is the one that's really taking the lead, but we'd also see other sectors that are going to follow at different speeds. So, regarding CO2, we did this survey back in 2008. You can see at the top of the slide. And at the time, when we contacted all the OEMs and the end users in this space, there were only 140 stores that had CO2 transcritical in Europe at the time. So we've come a long way. A long way. You've got more CO2 racks in this show than you had then in 2008. So we've definitely come a long way. Now, 10 years later, we've definitely seen some growth. We still see that Europe was leading with 16,000 stores, but Japan also had some interesting solutions around condensing units. So a very different approach to the CO2 racks that were mostly prevalent here in Europe, but we're starting to see those trends come also to Europe and beyond. And then we were seeing some experiments in other markets, South Africa especially, and North America, especially in Canada, with the US following a little bit. So it was becoming more of a global phenomenon. So the last time we collected data, which was about 5 months ago, we found about 30,000 stores worldwide now using CO2 transcritical in some form or another. 30,000, and the majority are in Europe still. In North America, we have close to 1,000. That can change, and we hope that will change, but we've been saying that for a long time in the US. I think for the last 10 years, in fact, it's going to take off, and it hasn't really taken off yet. So it'll be interesting to see how that really plays when you don't have that regulatory support that you might have had here in Europe. And this data is already out of date. It's going so fast. But it's showing a trend, clearly. So we can safely say there are over 30,000 stores around the world using transcritical. Do you agree? Hands up if you agree. So I see quite a lot of world experts in this room, actually. So when do you think we'll have 50,000 CO2 stores in the world? How many years? Hands up if you think that will be in 2 years' time. Hands up if you think that's in 5 years' time. Okay, so I see more hands about 2 years' time. So we're feeling quite buoyant, quite confident that CO2 is definitely taking off, and it's accelerating. So, what we're seeing is that the main focus has been on supermarkets for CO2. And what's exciting here, and we're starting to see this, there are more players offering solutions for small stores for CO2. And there we're going to see quite an interesting competition between hydrocarbons and CO2 for small stores. So we expect that to really generate a lot of innovation. And we're going to hear more about that later. And then what we're also seeing is CO2 is starting to compete with, say, ammonia on the larger industrial applications and some HFC-based solutions. So that's also going to be exciting. So CO2 is really going small and large. And I realize that I'm running out of time, so I'm going to try and speed up. On the hydrocarbon side, there are millions of units out there already, okay? And what we've seen is, if we look at hydrocarbon water loop, that growth rate of stores using hydrocarbon water loops actually gone faster than transcritical CO2 in this short space of time. So we're quite curious when we look at that to see watch this space. We do see some competition there. I don't know if the experts from EPTA will agree on that one, but that's what we're observing, is that we see there's a lot of dynamism around that. And, you know, people are interested in hydrocarbons, without a doubt. There are many important players that are investing in this space. And with the charge limits going up, that's also going to open up new opportunities. So now, these are just very basic trends, very basic slides. I want to just maybe invite William now up to stage, William Pagani. He's a group marketing director for EPTA. We've known each other for a few years.
Yep.
We've talked many times in different parts of the world, many markets, and you've always been saying, Mark, EPTA, we have this FTE solution. It's really a technology you can scale up, it's efficient, it can work in all ambience, and it's cost efficient, importantly. You can compete. So maybe you want to refine a little bit that argument and just tell us an update.
Most of all, it's simple, because this is what we want to do. You know, CO2 has been perceived as being just too difficult, too costly, too complicated to manage, installation, maintenance, and so on. So what our goal was at that time when we developed the FTE was we have to bring a very simple solution to the market. No more gizmos, no more stuff, electronics that you need to make things work, because that's too complicated. So we made it simple, we made it accessible. We're removing the hurdles that all the installers and the technicians have to install it and to run it properly. So that was for us the focus. And you know, we managed to create this simple system that works everywhere in the world. Because, you know, the second hurdle that we needed to take from the table was, okay, but this doesn't work if it's, you know, warmer than certain degrees. Okay, that's also now not in the equation anymore. So both things now work together so that there are no excuses anymore. You can use this system because it's simple and it works everywhere. So why not?
No, I mean, I remember when you introduced FTE, was it 3 years ago at this event, right? It was EuroShop,
Correct.
right? Yeah. You were all excited about this. And I remember talking to yourself, to yourselves, and also to your competitors and to some of your customers. And there was a lot of curiosity about, is this actually going to deliver? Is it possible? Yeah, it's too simple. It won't work. That was honestly the impression that I got when I asked people. And you know, everyone was legitimately skeptical because this was a brand new approach, right? You've really simplified it to the core, is how I understand it. So, and then what we've seen over the last 3 years is we've reported about this. You've actually reported many different examples in really tough climatic conditions, like in the Middle East, in Caribbean, and other places. So that's actually quite exciting to see that's actually happening. So I'm very curious to know how this is now going to scale up on FTE 2.0, but that's your presentation, right?
Correct.
Now, what about beyond the actual FTE technology? What about the store of the future? What's your vision there?
Well, the vision we have, and it's right in the name of the concept that we brought here this year, is the store revolution. You can read that as a revolution and a necessary evolution. Right now, the retailers are living quite a difficult time. Everything is changing around them. You have the online, the offline, the digital, the phygital we heard today. So physical and digital together.
Phygital.
Oh yeah, that's a tough one,
That's the first time I heard that one, phygital.
Well, it was a French guy today here presenting, and he said that. I was like, wow, I like the phygital.
Okay.
So all this is creating a new era for the retailer. And the revolution needs to be actually addressed with an evolution. And what we are bringing as EPTA, besides the FTE, that is a system, we're bringing products, we're bringing services, servitization, you said it earlier, it's very important. We're bringing ideas. We are bringing here startups that are helping us with new ideas. We're bringing innovation, but most of all, we're bringing the people with a passion for the sustainability in the business. You know, every day we wake up as EPTA, and there is something that we have in our hearts and our minds, and is how do we work in a sustainable way? You know, we're lucky enough to be a privately owned company, and our owner, president, and CEO has only two things that he tells us every day. It's like, keep it simple, okay, so that other people can get more from us than what we received from them. So we have to give back. And this is sustainability. So every day we go to work with this in mind, and this is just part of our culture.
Okay, it's great to hear. All right, if we could give William a round of applause, please.
Thank you, guys. And thank you, Mark, for your presentation. We're very proud to be hosting your event here on our booth, because we firmly believe that there is only one way for refrigeration, and that's the natural way, being CO2, ammonia, and hydrocarbons. That's only one way to go, and that's only natural. And this is what we are supporting.
That's great to hear. Thank you. Okay. Next up, the keynote speaker. Yoo-hoo! Yes, so we got Finn. Who knows Finn? Okay.
Hi.
Finn has been with EIA, which is the leading NGO in the cooling space worldwide. Yes, you've heard of Greenpeace. They were around for many years, to their credit. But over the last decade, I think that's fair to say, EIA have really captured that space, and they're real thought leaders in this space. They're really looking at what needs to be done to make the refrigeration industry, air conditioning included, more sustainable worldwide. So we love working with EIA. And so Finn is an expert in this space, and she's got a really interesting presentation for us. So give her a round of applause, please.
I think I'm mic'd up. Okay, well, thanks very much for inviting me here to talk today. I'm going to be telling you, you're going to hear later on about the how of how can we use natural refrigerants to avoid climate change. But I also want to talk to you about the why. Why are we trying to avoid climate change? What are the real impacts that are going on? But before I start talking about how natural refrigerants can prevent catastrophic climate change, I thought I'd touch a little bit on a personal tale about how natural refrigerants actually saved my marriage. Last year, my husband and some of his friends were celebrating a significant 40th birthday. And so we got together about a year beforehand and thought it would be really nice if we could hire a nice villa somewhere warm to celebrate together. I've got to say, as a climate campaigner, there's the part of me that loves the idea of jetting off into the sun, but there's the other part of me that freaks out at the amount of carbon that's going to be involved in all those flights going out to the sunshine. So I willingly put my hand up and said, hey guys, I'm happy to organize this holiday, no worries, with the ulterior motive that I was going to book somewhere in the south of France, because we can all take the Eurostar down there and avoid all those CO2 emissions. So that was the plan. The only stipulation my husband and his friends gave me was that it needed to have air conditioning. They didn't mind being hot in the day, but they needed a nice, cool room at night. So I said, okay, that's easy, no problem. So I found this beautiful place down in Bandol, surrounded by lovely vineyards, lovely rustic place. Contacted the guy, lovely guy called Bruno. I said, just checking there's air conditioning available. He said, yes. By the way, are you Finn Mulravens of the EIA? I was like, yeah. And I tell you, it's never happened before, and never since has anyone actually recognized my name. And he knew about the work that we'd been doing to combat HFCs. Anyway, booked the house, job done. A few months before our said departure, Bruno gets in touch with me to say, unfortunately, our plans to put air conditioning into the house haven't quite worked out, so we don't have any air conditioning. Hope that will be fine for you guys. I'll give you a few €100 off the price, not to worry. Well, no, Bruno, that's not okay. My husband is going to be really mad. It's April. We're about to leave on this holiday in a few months. I don't have time to rebook accommodation. So I thought about it. I thought, well, look, I've been working on this for over 10 years. What can my knowledge give to me that can help solve this situation? And then I remembered, aha, HFC portable room air conditioners are available. So I got in touch with Bruno and said, instead of giving me the discount, why don't you buy some of these room air conditioners so we can all have a nice, cool holiday? So Bruno willingly obliged. And as you can see, this is a picture of the actual R290 conditioners that we use. So yeah, everyone was happy, my husband was happy, and along we went with a great holiday. Anyway, on to the actual role of natural refrigerants and how they can help combat climate change. I think one thing I've noticed over the 10 years or so that I've actually been working in this issue is the change in public opinion. When I started working as a climate change campaigner, basically not many people really knew what I was talking about. It was quite a niche issue. But we've seen over the years, I mean, just the space between 2013 and 2018, the amount of the global population who think this is a major threat to their country has increased rapidly. So clearly, this is a big issue on people's minds. Sorry, I hope you don't mind. I'm going to have a sip of water. Okay, so why is this a big deal? Well, clearly, we're living in the beginning of the reality that is to come. We've already seen these terrible fires that have hit across Australia. 500,000 animals died in these fires. Not many people realize the huge impact it's had on biodiversity. We're seeing flooding in Europe. I mean, I don't know if you guys experienced it in the last few days, but certainly my house, there was a river going through my garden the other day, and I actually had to dig a channel to try and divert the water away. So this is really happening. This is just the beginning. This is, excuse the pun, but this is the tip of the iceberg, really. So we're going to see huge sea level rises. We're going to see, huge amounts of flooding. Also, particularly in the UK, we seem to have a bit of an issue with emigration. If we think we've got a problem now, this is nothing compared to what's coming on the future. Okay, so it's not a good situation for the world, but ironically, I think it could be quite a big opportunity for the cooling industry. We do have some more challenges coming up ahead. We're going to see from EPTA already how you can make equipment work at higher temperatures. Also, I think the need for energy efficiency is key. As the world heats up, we're going to have a demand for so much more cooling, and cooling is going to become a greater and greater part of a company's carbon footprint. So energy efficiency is key. So we need to think about ways that we can innovate and provide warming for all, provide cooling for all in a warm planet. So what do we need to do on a big picture? What are the actual commitments that need to be taken? I was saying to Mark, I was preparing for this presentation last week and looking at all the up-to-date information on where we are in terms of warming. And it was really depressing. It gets worse and worse every year. And every year, everyone says, this is our last chance. We need to do something about it. So we're now at a stage where if we want to meet 1.5 degrees C of warming, which is what we consider a manageable level of warming, anything above this is going to have huge consequences on the way we live. If we want to meet 1.5 degrees C of warming, we need to drop our global emissions by over 7.5% year on year to get down to 25 gigatons of CO2 equivalent by 2030. So this is a huge ask. At the moment, the current commitments that our governments have made take us on a path to 3.2 degrees C of warming, which is pretty epic, actually. It's going to have huge consequences on the way that we live. So what do we need to do? We have some end users, some supermarkets here today. Already we've seen leadership. We've seen supermarkets Sainsbury's step up where governments have yet to actually get to, and they've committed to go net zero by 2040. So this is actually an emissions reduction commitment which brings them in line with the 1.5 degree target that we are still hoping to meet. So I think the question from EIA is who's next to step up? And this year is going to be a really key year for this step up, because we're going to have the climate change COP, which is on my next slide. But anyway, so what have we got so far? What are our commitments that retailers have made so far? We have the Consumer Goods Forum, which have had some resolutions in 2010 and 2016, and more recently in 2019, they renewed their commitment to phase down HFCs and implement energy-efficient cooling. Yes, it's great to have commitments. We all love commitments, but the question is, are you actually going to meet those commitments? We've seen retailers commit to putting estate-wide targets on the table. The reality is that's not really happening at the moment. We're seeing really good work in Europe, but there's a problem taking it beyond Europe. So yeah, this is the year we need to step up to the climate challenge. We've got the next major conference of the parties in Glasgow. Why is everyone saying this is such a big deal this year? Well, we had in 2015, we had Paris when countries came up with their commitments, and now this is the next big COP for countries to come forward with a new set of commitments. So we're still hoping to keep within that 1.5 degree target. Clearly, we know that cooling has got to be an integral part of this. So we need retailers and manufacturers to step up and say, we will commit to these targets. We will take on emissions reduction strategies to try and show governments that we need to move forward on this. What's EIA doing to help? We don't just bash people over the head and tell them that they're not doing enough. We try and give back as well. So we actually have a website called Cool Technologies that we've developed with Greenpeace, and it's a searchable database of HFC-free cooling from around the world. It's still being updated, so I would actually request for you guys to get in touch with me and give us some information, share your information on interesting cool technologies that you guys have been using. I'm aware Mark's already touched on this a little bit at the CO2 success story. I mean, personally, I've found this story has really helped me as a climate campaigner. When I started at EIA, we began something called Chilling Facts. I don't know if many of you have heard of it, but it ran between 2009 and 2017. And we basically surveyed supermarkets. We started in the UK, but then we went global. And we encouraged supermarkets to move away from HFCs. And I think what was interesting was in those first years, the retailers would come to us and they would say, we can't move away from HFCs because they're not energy efficient, or we can't move away from HFCs because we don't have the engineers to deal with them. And they gave us a long list of reasons why it couldn't be done. But what's interesting, I think, about the private sector is actually, although they say it can't be done, there was clearly guys in the background just getting on with it and making it happen. And a few years later, we began to see this huge growth in CO2 technology in Europe. And I don't think many of you realize actually what a massive impact that has actually had on global regulation on HFCs. I personally was involved in the F-gas review, and I saw that the action that European retailers had taken on CO2 in supermarkets showed such a massive success story that it really helped build that momentum, which enabled us to get the F-gas regulation. And then once we had the F-gas regulation, that in turn helped build momentum to get a global deal on HFCs. So really, these European supermarkets were the forerunners that helped us get global action on HFCs, which could potentially avert 0.4 degrees of warming by 2100. So already much has been done. But the question is, have we done enough? Of course, I'm going to say no, but it's not just coming from an NGO perspective. Climate change is real, and the next 10 years are going to be critical. The Kigali Amendment doesn't actually require developing countries to take action until 2024. So it's not going fast enough, and we need retailers to step up and move forward in developing countries as well. I'm going to skip over this because I think it's already been covered, but just to basically say that obviously we're not just talking about global warming potential on its own. We need to combine energy efficiency with it. I wanted to talk about an interesting new development that's happened for the commercial refrigeration standard. In May 2019, a proposal to increase the allowable charge size for A3 flammable refrigerants, which are hydrocarbons, was accepted. So now you can use up to 500 grams of hydrocarbons in commercial refrigeration. I put in there was a bit of a bumpy ride. The initial vote was actually a no, much to our and everyone from the natural refrigerant industry's dismay. But it turned out that one of the votes was actually, they hadn't done the procedure properly, so they actually had to void the vote, and they turned it around to a positive result, which is actually, I think, the first time in the whole history of this standards body where this has happened. So this was a big moment for standards history, and also a big moment for the future potential of the use of hydrocarbons. So the next challenge we have is another hydrocarbon refrigerants charge size increase in the air conditioning sector. this is going to be another big battle. This is going to be a hard fight. So we would call on manufacturers to help support this process. Okay, so I've spoken about the benefits of using natural refrigerants from a climate perspective. I just want to kind of remind you a little bit about what are the impacts of using HFCs from a climate perspective. This is my little kind of pet thing that I go on at with my colleagues at EIA, and they're like, will you please stop on the 20-year thing? But I think I just can't get it out of my head. Like, the way that we measure HFCs is on a 100-year time frame, okay? So imagine that's the time frame. But all HFCs actually are only in the atmosphere for 20 years. So if you use a 100-year time frame, you're going to dilute that impact. So basically, the global warming potential as we know it underplays the impact that HFCs have on climate change in the near term. And the next 20 years is really what we're looking at to try and get the world onto a sustainable path. So I'll just highlight, for example, you have HFC 2032 here. The black dot in the middle is its 100-year GWP of just under 700. If you look at it over a 20-year time frame, it's got a GWP of almost 2,500. So this is promoted as a sustainable alternative to in certain sectors. But really, is it sustainable over 20 years? That's the question. And similarly, the other HFCs have sort of similar properties. The other problem with HFCs, many of you will know EIA for our work on illegal trade in refrigerant gases. This is something that HFCs have sort of been prone to. We've seen in 2018, we did a trade data analysis which showed a significant amount of front door smuggling. So this is where HFCs are actually declared as HFCs at customs, but they're simply not being reported in the F-gas registry. So we basically have a quota system that's not fit for purpose. What does that mean as a retailer, as someone who purchases HFCs? Well, I think it actually potentially has a reputational risk because it's very difficult to prove the legality of HFCs. And I think it could be a problem in the future to say, actually, these HFCs are legal or not. So there's certainly questions being raised. And it's certainly a problem that's not going to go away. We're going to see further F-gas supply cuts in 2021. I just put a little note on there to say that actually HFOs are not going to be immune from this kind of illegal trade as well, because they are very expensive gases. We're going to see potentially some counterfeiting going on as well. Okay, I'm aware that there is this new breed of HFOs that are being promoted in the commercial refrigeration sector as a sustainable alternative, compare them to natural refrigerants. Yes, they are low GWP, tick. Yes, apparently there's good energy efficiency, okay. But we also have another issue with some HFOs. And there's one HFO in particular that's causing big environmental concern. And it's a very popular HFO, which is this 1234YF. And this is often used in some of these low GWP blends that are being put or being proposed as use in supermarkets. 1234YF is a problem for the environment because it degrades into something that basically creates acid rain. It accumulates in the hydrosphere. This acid basically affects germination and plant growth. And there's a lot of uncertainty as to whether it could impact our food supply chains. The chemical industry often says, oh, this is a load of mumbo-jumbo. There's loads of TFA out there anyway. HFOs are not the major source of TFA. This is just another bit of natural refrigerant industry propaganda. Well, the Montreal Protocol themselves, and I quote, have said that the high rate of TFA from a number of HFOs, especially 1234YF, may be of considerable environmental relevance in view of expected future HFO production expansion. So it's not just us that are warning about it. Okay, so what are our recommendations? EIA would like to see retailers replicate this European success in developing countries. We want you to honor this EGF resolution. We want to see some targets and action plans, statewide ones. We want you to share best practice and continue to drive down upfront costs through buyers' clubs. And of course, for equipment manufacturers, there's plenty to do. We have a new F-gas regulation review on the horizon, which again is going to look for increasing ambition in the phase down, potentially some other sectorial bans. So we're looking for your support on that. We want to see progressive changes to standards, particularly in the air conditioning sector, and to keep driving energy efficiency improvements. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly summarize what I've been talking about today. Climate change is real. It's not something we can just bury our heads in the sand, but this is actually an opportunity for businesses here today. But we need to step up. There is a significant challenge ahead. Our lack of action has resulted in huge demands being put on us now. And we need to act beyond Europe. It's not just about Europe being the leader. Europe has to push other countries to change as well. And retailers with global estates can do that. We're going to see, hopefully, changes to standards, opening up new markets. And equally, F-gases are going to have continued issues with climate crime, and HFOs are not future-proof. Okay, just to finish, you're wondering, why has she got a picture of the famous Australian heavy metal band, AC/DC? Well, I just thought, when I was trying to think about how have similar issues like this cropped up in the past, we actually had the War of the Currents that happened in the late 19th century. We had Thomas Edison, America's greatest inventor, invented the light bulb. Alongside the light bulb, he also developed the direct current power system. The big problem with using direct current to power as a power system is that it entails enormous energy losses along the wires. So basically what Edison's system involved was that you had to have a power station every 2 kilometers because the energy losses were so big. So there was power stations everywhere, all over the place. And then along comes Nikola Tesla, a little-known Serbian engineer who some say was sent by aliens as a genius to spread knowledge. But anyway, he developed an alternating current system which enabled the use of widespread electricity without the need for power stations every 2 kilometers. But, not to be outdone, Thomas Edison, a big American mogul, launched a huge media campaign against Nikola Tesla, trying to discredit alternating current, trying to say this was a public safety threat. He even went to the trouble of electrocuting a lot of animals just to prove his point. I've said, perhaps there are some similarities going on today. I'm not alluding to electrocuting animals at all, though. But basically, sense prevailed, and in 1893, the first electrified World Fair decided to use alternating current. So now we have the system of alternating current is what we use today, and it's also saved us from a whole load of extra power stations that we didn't need. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Finn. Excellent presentation. Definitely makes you think about why we're doing what we're doing and how we can solve all of this. Are there any questions for Finn? This is the time. Otherwise, you'll forget the question at the general Q&A. So,
or you
is
can
it all
ask me
clear?
Over a drink later.
All clear? Okay. All right. I have a question for you. I have a comment. The GWP thing is a big deal. The 20-year horizon. I think we as an industry need to start communicating that more clearly. 20 years, not 100 years, because it definitely the 100-year time horizon skews the numbers, definitely in the favor of synthetic refrigerants. So we definitely have to take that up, and we at Sheco, we should systematically be communicating both versions, just like you're doing. So, and I think the industry at large should do the same. But thinking ahead, beyond the GWP argument, I think we're going to come in the next decade, we're going to come to kind of a basic, simple choice. Do we want clean cooling or do we want dirty cooling? Okay, and then it's all going to be about how do you define clean cooling? And I would argue that clean cooling, if we're smart about it, it's going to be about natural refrigerants or no refrigerants, depending on the application, and renewable energy sources to power these systems. And if we can combine the two, that is, I would say, quite a clean future. And that's definitely a that's definitely something the cooling industry can aim for. And by definition, if you're not clean, then you're definitely dirty. And I think that kind of simplification would be helpful in this kind of debate,
Yeah,
I would argue.
I think
Just
so.
to get it, to get people's mind. We've got to do something. We are living a climate crisis, and we can't wait another 10
I
years.
think the kind of pollution analogy also helps people engage with it a lot more. I think climate change can be quite an ethereal concept, and I think when you see it's a pollutant, that's a lot easier to understand it in that way.
Yeah, and to EPTA's credit, you're working with clean solutions. Next step is also the smart energy grid and the renewable energy grid and how you're going to connect your store of the future to that. And I think that's something that you're probably looking at anyway, and it's in the pipeline. So if you have anything you want to talk about now, feel free to mention that. But okay, enough said. Next up, we're going to hear a little bit more about FDE2, right? So round of applause to Francesco, please.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Fionnuala, for your excellent introduction. Now it's time to understand what we have written here. What does C4R mean? We've heard about what is the current age is the age of climate warming. And we all know that we would like to stop climate warming, and everyone in its industry has to do something now for this problem. And we know that to stop climate warming, we need to stop the greenhouse gas emissions. So it goes on two different axes. One axis is the energy issue, energy-related issues. You know that for the moment, let's say the situation of the global warming makes so that more and more cooling units will be installed in the future. There's a study, a recent study from Birmingham University telling us that 19 cooling units will be installed each second for the next 30 years. So you can imagine what is the demand of energy we have ahead. And to cope with this, to keep this under control, we have to react now. So first of all, we have to scale up renewable energy sources and change completely the perspective on energy consumption. This is something we have to do now. So particularly interesting is the development of energy saving and less consumption, less energy consumption on our units. This is important. This graph tells a lot about where we are going now. You can see in yellow, this is the trend, the current trend in consumption, and the consumption we have ahead. And you can clearly see that the target of the Paris Agreement, which is 1.5 degrees global warming, is gone in less than 20 years. It will be not possible anymore. We will lose the control on it unless we change completely our daily habits and our technologies. Because we want to become, 2050, Europe will become climate neutral. So it will mean that we will have to operate on renewable energy and energy consumption of our systems. We are not on track now, but if we react immediately, this is still a situation we can recover. The second axis is the use of HFCs. You told already a lot about HFCs and what they're doing. They are direct greenhouse emissions. And as you can see here, the majority of HFCs is coming from commercial refrigeration and industrial refrigeration. So we are the first ones, the most responsible, if we want to change the present situation. So a change into natural refrigeration is needed now. So it's good to see that in EuroShop right now you don't see any more equipment with HFCs. This is a good sign. But there are still a lot of parts of the world that hear Europe using CO2 and they say, it won't ever work in my climate. They don't know, but I'm sitting in Dubai and here we have 55 degrees. What can I do? And then they hear that there are solutions to cope with warm climates like that, but they are extremely complicated. And they don't know anything about CO2, so they need a simple solution that beats all barriers of concern, that requires no special training, knowledge, complication, and no risk, and puts no risk on the client. So abandoning HFCs is crucial. Coming to C4R project, what does it mean? Carbon for Retail Refrigeration project. It is a project, an EPTA project, co-sponsored by the European community, that has the target to replace HFCs globally with CO2. But while doing this, the target is substantially to contribute to the cut of greenhouse emissions by cutting HFCs from the market, but also delivering efficiency, simplicity, and savings in maintenance and in installation. This is what we need if we want to beat down all barriers to reach any part of the world and make sure they use only CO2 refrigeration as a standard solution. The LIFE C4R project is a 3-year project, and it consists of different phases. It is inspired by 2 technologies, FTE, full transcritical efficiency 2.0, new generation, that we are presenting at EuroShop right now, and extreme temperature efficiency, which is a second technology going along with FTE. They are complementary solutions that are able to deliver hyper-efficient systems in any part of the world. The schedule is industrial development. This is gone. You have the products over there. You're welcome to take a look. The system is very easy, and you can see, you won't see any special ejector or parallel compression. You're going to see only compressors, heat exchangers, tubes, pipes, liquid receivers, nothing complicated to manage for anyone in any part of the world. This is done. We have on schedule 7 important pilot projects. These 7 projects will be fully monitored and will be used to monitor these solutions. Despite we've done several hundreds of FTE systems, we're monitoring very, very closely these 7 projects because we want to build up a life cycle analysis based on the LCCP standards. This analysis will prove how good these solutions are for the environment and for stopping climate change and stopping greenhouse emissions with data, with facts. And we're going to use this analysis to contribute to the dissemination, worldwide dissemination, global dissemination of the solution worldwide, if we want to have it as a global solution in the future. This project then takes 3 years, has 15 project managers within EPTA, and it will be, so it's going from middle 18 to middle 21 and beyond. To come to a point, what are the objectives? There are environmental objectives, replacing HFCs with CO2. It sounds easy, but it's not easy, and it's very important. Remember that replacing a cabinet working with 404, for example, the refrigerant we had up until a few months ago, a few years ago, with one working with CO2 means cutting its direct emission by 4,000 times, which is not bad, I would say. So from an environment point of view, wow, it's a great success. There is a policy objective. We have to make this solution standard for the future because we want to cancel all concerns and have this solution widely and globally used in all parts of the world. And third, technical objective. We don't want only to replace the refrigerant. We want to show that it is convenient and profitable for anyone to go for CO2 refrigeration. Therefore, we are assuring, at least in any part of the world, any climate, at least 10% energy saving and 20% maintenance and installation savings, so that there will be no excuse in the end. It's not complicated, it's convenient, it doesn't cost more. Why not? Why not? Why shouldn't I in any part of the world? There are 3 partners deeply involved in this project: EPTA, SPA, Italy, EPTA, Iberia, and DAS, Romania. In these 3 teams are specialists of designing, contracting, and installing, and they are closely monitoring our pilot projects to get to the point when we are ready to disseminate. Finally, the products are there, are available, are sellable now. Everybody can access to these projects. We've installed these projects already in several places. We've chosen 3 pilot projects to show you. Basically, the result of these installations is that we've succeeded in energy saving and in the savings in the costs, related costs to the installation. What we have is a considerable higher evaporation temperature. This is what we want, to save energy, in a very simple way. Energy saving is there, is available, and is proven all the time. How? Let's come to the technical solution. I do not want to enter too much in the detail of technicalities and so on. But important is to notice that it all starts on the medium temperature cabinets. It's there that we want to have the energy efficiency, increasing the evaporation temperature there. And we do it using CO2 in its liquid form within the evaporators of the medium temperature cabinets. This ensures better heat transfer and an increase of evaporation temperature, a dramatic increase of evaporation temperature, thus energy savings. Knowing that we can't send the liquid from the chillers back to the compressors, of course we can't. We use this liquid very simply to deliver it to the freezers. And that's done. Very simple. Nothing complicated in it. It looks like a basic booster system in the end. The secret is there. Solution is simple, is fully integrated in the pack now. FTE 2.0 has the FTE module integrated in the pack and further enhanced. The second solution that goes along with FTE 2.0 is dedicated to extreme temperatures, tropical countries, countries reaching temperatures like 50, 55 degrees. And what we do here is a theory that is well known for many years. It is subcooling, mechanical subcooling. Mechanical subcooling allows us to trick the thermometer. It's like shifting the thermometer down 10, 15 degrees. We just subcool the mixture, the liquid, the refrigerant out of the gas cooler. We subcool it with a special compressor, okay? And then we send the refrigerant within the circuit. By doing this, we can achieve efficiency, also in very, very warm climates. Very simple. We are talking about compressor, a heat exchanger, nothing complicated at all. And the compressor is integrated in the power rack. To come to an end, this solution allows, combined with FTE, to access any part of the world with CO2. In terms of communication, after I've improved the benefits of this solution almost anywhere we are disseminating. So you can find us in events, in workshops, in seminars, in some universities we're speaking every time, in any part of the world. And we have a huge communication plan because we think that too many times CO2 is confused with a super special solution. And we want to show everyone that this is not the case at all. So we need to intensify and make a solid dissemination activity. You have seen us in the last 2 years in many, many events. You have seen me many times. Don't know if it's good for you or not. However, I was in many places talking about FTE, and now I will talk of ETE as well, extreme temperature efficiency. The technology has been accepted so well that it's been awarded also many times, important awards being given to this solution. So that means that it works, it's not stupid, it's simple, it's efficient, so it's valid. It's been accepted by the whole world of refrigeration in Europe. Now we have to intensify the dissemination out of Europe as well. So you will meet us again in the next conferences, which you can see on the screen, especially in Chilventa, in Refrigera, in Madrid, and in future EuroShops as well. And all the time the message will be that CO2 is there, is simple, is efficient, is convenient for everyone. I believe this is a strong message that supports and tries to contribute to the problem from our point of view as a manufacturer, the best way for the development, deployment of natural refrigeration, hyper-efficient natural refrigeration. Okay? For any question, feel free to contact me anytime, also after the show, but especially now, if you have some questions, please go ahead.
A round of applause for Francesco, please. I know we're going to have cocktails after, but some of you may have to rush off. So are there questions for Francesco? Is it all clear? I mean, what's interesting is this project, this EU-backed project, Life project, is a very important program within the EU, within the European Commission. Yeah. Having EU-funded or data backed up by the EU to prove that FTE works in high ambience is a powerful message, I believe.
Yeah, it is definitely.
Yeah, and the EU won't allow you to just provide incorrect information, right? So they're going to have to back that up. So that's a very important message here. One question. Am I allowed to ask you how many FTE stores are there in the world? Because, you know, we talked about 30,000 stores around the world, including condensing units. Yeah. How many of those are EPTA?
EPTA installations?
Yeah.
Well, Mark, difficult to say. We don't count them anymore since we reached 1,000.
Is it over 1,000? It's
yes,
over 1,000. When
definitely.
did you hit that? Do you know?
2 or 3 years ago, I would say.
Okay.
It was already there. And then for us now, the baseline, the standard solution, what we offer first to anyone is a CO2 transcritical system. Okay. So we don't count them anymore. They're becoming a standard solution. So we lost the count.
Yeah, but
actually.
you know, there are a lot of stores out there that need to go to naturals. So I would still count them. Please count them. I think it's an important message. We at Checo, we would like to actually rank the different players and quantify that number.
No, I'll tell you more.
Yeah. And it'd be interesting to know where EPTA is on that list. I'd say you're definitely up there in the high numbers.
I want to challenge and promise something.
Yeah.
I think you said we have to reach 50,000 now, and we miss another 20,000.
Yeah.
So I can assure you that for the next 2 years, at least we offer how many? 3,000 from EPTA, 4,000 from EPTA.
Okay.
Okay, this is what we put on the table
to
reach the 50,000.
We'll make sure our journalists are writing this down.
Please.
Tina, did you hear that?
And in 3 years, I'll be here to count the installations with you.
All right,
however,
that's ambitious.
You touch a good point, because it's not the EU gives money anywhere without any reason.
Oh.
The FTE solution has been recognized to contribute to the greenhouse gas stop by 2 ways. With efficiency, so energy reduction, and by using natural refrigerants. And simple. So they believed so much in this technology that they were the first ones to gamble on this solution and to ask us and finance us to disseminate it worldwide. So it means something for us. We're very proud about that. It's not only a solution that EPTA says and claims, well, it's the best. It's the best because the EU decided to bet on that. So
Great.
we are very proud of that.
For FTE, sorry. Round of applause.
Too good, too good.
At the next EuroShop in 3 years' time, for FTE 3.0, please partner up with some renewable energy companies.
That's a good point, Mark.
Going back to the clean cooling challenge that we have, we're running out of time. Things are speeding up. Think about that. Maybe that's something that would be quite cool to associate more directly, not just the consumption, but also the production of the energy.
We will come here with a totally castle pack full of solar panels.
Okay.
So that auto-generates the
that's
power.
That's clearly the future. So
yes.
we gotta, you know, whoever can push that. And you're a €1 billion company, right? That's a lot of money you make every year. Yeah. That's a lot of weight. That's a lot of power that you have in the market. So leverage it, please. Okay.
We're very conscious.
So, final session. We have an end user. Yay! We have an end user who's going to be able to explain about his experiences. Okay. So we have Fortunato from Inres Coop in Italy, and he's going to tell us a little bit about his experience with natural refrigerants. A round of applause, please.
Good evening. Do you listen to me? Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to be invited to speak about our experience on CO2 and about natural refrigerants. So I will bring you our experience, who we are. Just an introduction. My company, my organization is COP. What is COP? COP, we are supermarket. We work only in Italy. You know COP. COP is present also in Switzerland, in Norway, and so on. But our organization, we work in Italy. So we have a system, a very little bit complicated system. We have 7 cooperatives that works along our country. We have just a little more than 1,000 supermarkets, 100 hypermarkets. And my company is named Inres. We give technical services to all COP all over Italy. What about this slide? I would like to underline that in our organization we give technical services. Refrigeration is under the technical department, is under the ME, so HVAC and so on department. So because we believe that we can reach good result in refrigeration only if we merge together all technology, all the knowledge about this. It's not a separate organization. What about why we are interested in this matter? Because cope with the environment is part of our mission, so not from a few years ago. So I would like to, I bring you this was one statement of our environmental policy in 2005. So in 2005 and also before, we believed that refrigeration was a very important part with which we have to discuss. Also, a very little history about commercial refrigeration at Inres. I don't speak about the relevance. The speakers before me already underlined how much is important commercial refrigeration on CO2 emission. I would like to have this. I don't want to read all of this history. I would like only to underline that starting in 1994, we have choose at the time about the ozone depletion, and so we started. So today is also a pleasure to underline that refrigeration is every time is in continuous development. So it's not so a steady technology. They change every year, every time. So it's very interesting to work in this. And so it means also that we as technicians, we have to develop continuously a new knowledge about the techniques that could be applied. We arrived to CO2 system you see in 1999, and so from there we developed a lot of different experience. This slide just summarize the work that we have done. We had a first test phase in which we try different type of plant techniques, and then we fully develop starting from 2000. There is not a year, sorry. It's 3 years ago. So from 3 years ago, we started with a fully developed CO2 system. So today for us, CO2 is a standard for larger supermarket, and today we are still trying to find a good solution for smaller one. And it's a pleasure also to announce that just on Saturday, last Saturday, we have a new opening of a small supermarket with a less than 40 kilowatt CO2 transcritical plant. So we are interested in develop also this technique. What we do, we develop all the design phase, we develop the commissioning, and we started several years ago with this comparison. The comparison that you see on my left are the comparison that we have when we compare the CO2 transcritical plant with other one that has the air with cascade system. So what we learn from this lesson, we learn that usually during the when we studied the different plants, we discovered that the CO2 plant were well managed than the other one, because it was more difficult to run a CO2 plant. So the maintenance, the service work with more. They pay more attention to the work. On the opposite, with the more traditional plant, the maintaining services was not so careful. So we discovered that usually we had better performance with the CO2, but we had better performance also because of maintenance. So one lesson we learn is very important to have a good maintenance, a good knowledge from person that give us the service. And this is very important in order to reach the final result that we have before. So I have some example that we have. So working on the evaporating set point, we reach a good result for the energy consumption. And also this is our other case in which we have moving on the regulation, we obtain very good results in energy saving. Obviously, it's very important to close the door of the refrigeration. We started now about 10 years ago, and now is a standard to close all the medium temperature cabinet. And so it's very important for us to have good joining from not only refrigeration, but also HVAC plant. So we work, so they can work together. So what about new technology? I've already said we are very interested in to develop new technology because today CO2 has definitely demonstrated, according to our point of view, obviously, I don't want to say, but in our point of view, CO2 transcritical plant has definitely demonstrated that they can reach very good energy results and obviously also very good environmental results. I have finished. Thank you.
Thank you, Fortunato. Do we have any questions? It's not often that we get an end user explaining his experience. Any bad experiences with natural refrigerants? And if so, what did you do? What did all the projects that you've had with different natural refrigerant solutions, have you had some bad experiences with them?
Yeah.
And what have you done
Also.
to, what were those and what did you do
But
to fix
we had
them?
also bad experience also with traditional plants.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So no problem
it's
with
nothing
that.
exceptional.
It's the history.
Okay, yeah.
When you work, you have to face also troubles, but
Yeah.
no problem. When you have clear where do you want to go.
Okay, so that wasn't really an issue. It was just,
No,
it's just
not,
a bump
it's
in the
not
road.
real issue.
Okay.
We are obviously we didn't try dice, so we work very
You did your
hardly
homework. Yeah.
in order to have good results, but no problem. Also, it's very important to have good suppliers and also good services, I have already said, in order to reach the result. Because it's not so important only to build a plant, but it's very important to run it.
Yes.
Because each plant, in our experience, ran for more than 15, sometimes 20 years. And we don't want to change for 20 years.
Yeah.
So it's very important, a good construction, but it's very important to run it in a good way.
So that performance that you had expected over the years, has that actually happened in reality?
Exactly.
It has happened.
They happen.
Okay.
No, we studied about 3 years ago. We compared 5 transcritical plants with the other 5 non-transcritical plants. Each one was in our supermarket, in our organization. So we compared that, and we discovered that the results were really compliance. Really, before we have fear that energy consumption in CO2 plant was higher than the other one. So it's not so.
So is it safe to say that transcritical CO is becoming your standard technology now for supermarkets?
Yeah.
How many supermarkets do you have in Italy?
We have today 1,000 supermarkets. Now,
1,000.
when we
So what's the
now
percentage?
we have today we have about 50.
15.
50.
50.
Today,
So
next,
50.
we are starting with the new one, refurbishment.
So 50 out of 1,000. So there's a long way to
It's
still
a long
go.
way.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
a
to
long way.
convert.
It's
Okay.
a long way to
And
convert. Yes.
And you think that will happen over the next decade, more or less?
Probably. Also, I have seen. Yes, I think so. Decade or 15 years probably, because I see that we have several supermarkets they have more than 20, no, more than 15 years before we change it.
Okay.
So when we change, we will change to CO2.
And then how many of those 1,000 stores are small supermarkets or small convenience stores or convenience stores?
About the 1,000, I think about 300.
300 of
300.
that. And so up until now, that's been the biggest challenge you've had in terms of finding a natural...
Exactly.
So you mentioned
To
that you're
change.
still working with
Today we
but-
use phosphorate, but
Yeah.
we would like to use
So
the
you're-
CO2.
and you-
That's critical next
Yeah.
time.
And you're seeing quite a few options now available in the marketplace for that. Or it's still
some-
too early,
something,
yeah?
something,
Okay, okay.
something. I have just said last Saturday
Yeah, yeah.
we opened a
That was your first
supermarket,
one, right?
the first one, less than 40 kilowatts. So it's very interesting to monitor, to study the result that we will have.
Okay. No, please come and present that in Brussels at Atmosphere Europe next year. Okay? Yeah. I think the policymakers will need to hear that.
Oh,
Because
it-
that
it
is
will
going
be a
to
pleasure.
that is going to be a big discussion point. Natural refrigerants for small stores. That's definitely an area that has to be explored more in this
Also,
market.
obviously, today we are also interested in to study, to understand about the mild flammable refrigerants. It's because we are obliged to study, to understand, and then we will discover, and also with all other techniques.
Okay, okay. All right, do we have any questions for Fortunato? No? Am I going to point to someone? Oh, I can see Jim there. He's looking away. He's like pretending I didn't see him. Come on, there's got to be someone that wants to ask a question. No? All right, can we get everyone up to the stage, all the speakers that were speaking, please? If we could just get everyone on the stage. This is the opportunity to ask a question to any of the speakers. First, I think they all deserve a round of applause. Yeah. So, if there's any public question that you want to ask, now's the moment. And I'm going to walk around, and I'm going to bring a microphone to someone. So if I see someone looking at me, Francisca, a familiar face.
Hello, thank you very much. My name is Francisca. I'm working for UNIDO. We're working with developing countries. And thank you very much for the presentation, because I think this is what the future will be, and not just in Europe, hopefully, but hopefully also in the rest of the world. So my question is, we're working with industry and governments in developing countries. They are super interested to find climate-friendly solutions, to have energy-efficient solutions. But yes, the level of technicians and engineers is still a bit different, or in different parts of the world, and maybe not comparable to Europe. I'm quite intrigued by the simplicity of the FTE system. For example, let's take, you're saying Romania and Spain. There's just a small step to go to North Africa, for example. Could we bring the system also to Tunisia? How difficult is it to train the technicians? How much thous can we go? Francesco, maybe, or...
Well, if our customers from from Middle East were here to tell about the CO2 installation we
might
did
say
there, but
something
yeah,
about
you
it.
go ahead.
Well, we've proven finally with the Carbon for Retail Refrigeration project that there is no technical barrier. So I would say now we have to work on the cultural barrier, culture of the people, their comfort bubble, the comfort bubble of their technicians. And this is the most difficult part, because everyone is doing better what he knows and so on. And most of them, as I said before, they hear about CO2 in Europe, but they say it works in Europe. Why? Because they have a cold climate. We have warmer climate. We are in Tunisia and nobody knows anything about CO2. We don't even know where to buy CO2. This is the climate there. But we've seen that cultural barriers can be beaten down, of course, with dissemination. And at some point, the responsible choice of the technologies will touch them as well, because we have the Kigali Amendment in place, and the energy problem, the energy issues is global. So at some point, it's just a matter of time. And many countries, we wouldn't say, but they have tried CO2, they've implemented successfully CO2. Now they're happy to do that. And they are maybe located in Vietnam, in Southeast Asia, in some islands, in Tahiti. And we have a system installed in Tahiti starting right now, and before that they were using R22. So they went directly from R22 to CO2, can you realize? So we have to work a lot on dissemination and breaking the barrier of concern, and we think that with this solution it's much easier.
And if you like to talk about deep south, then we can talk about Australia. We've got Peter and Mike here. Maybe they can tell us a little bit about that, what they did with the CO2 technology in Australia, thanks also to the FTE. So it's really a matter of finding the right people who want to do it. And, you know, in the case of Australia, I mean, how easy was it for us, together with AG Baker, to do it? You know, because you find the same people with the same culture, and you just do it, okay? And this is how things happen then. It's simple, you do it with people who understand why simple is better, and then you just do it together, okay?
Okay. Are there any more questions for the panelists? Yep, please.
So I got, hello. So I got a few questions which are more a little bit technical related.
The
mainly.
German guy that has to ask the technical questions. That's very good.
So the question was, how much does FTE cost?
Microphone.
And is it the same or is it reduced compared to the standard FTE, which means FTE 2.0 compared to standard FTE, and maybe also compared to a standard transcritical system?
Well, of course, if I may.
Yeah. No, you please.
Then this is my second answer, so next time you leave me alone
You're
and
popular,
you leave me
you're
quiet,
popular.
okay, for a while. No, the problem of the cost is a false problem, because of course you have to compare FTE with other solution that achieves the same goals. So you can't compare it with a R404 system that's going to be forbidden day after tomorrow, or you can't compare FTE system with a totally non-efficient system. So in this state of mind, the FTE system is not more costly or expensive than another CO2 solution. And we would say that we have achieved at this point in time, due to the fact that we are doing more and more, and thousands, as we said, EPTA has done thousands of systems with CO2, and this solution is a mass solution, is an industrial solution, where the Power X are not designed for a specific project. They are standard products that are implemented into the supermarket. So there is no special, artificial, and not anymore. So now it's an industrial, massified solution, and we've achieved a very, very good point in cost. It's very convenient right now.
Okay, thanks a lot. Maybe I can also add just a few words to this, because we can more or less, when you look at the FTE, it's also depending on the energy savings. So what you do is you compare the amount of energy, the amount of cost you can save compared to the installation, the additional installation cost you have. So we are talking about for return on invest. And we as EPTA, we can guarantee more or less a return on invest for this solution for less than 3 years, which is, I think, really great. And yeah, this answers maybe a little bit the question, how much does it cost?
That return on investment, 3 years, which is it's a good number. Anywhere in the world?
This, of course, depends on how much energy saving you have, and of course also how much the energy cost is.
Okay.
So I'm talking literally for the European area, where the price is.
You want to go global with this technology, though. That's the
Yes.
idea, right? Europe's not enough. It's taking the rest of the world. So that's what's
So
important
the
here.
cost for energy is a big point.
Okay.
In Europe, the cost for energies are increasing and increasing. And of course, in other countries where the cost for energy is not so high, maybe the return on invest is not exactly 3 years. But even if it's maybe 4 years or at least 4.5 years, it's still very interesting. We've just heard that the stores are running up to 20 years. Correct me if I'm wrong, but when you consider then 4 or 5 years of return on invest, even in other countries, then this may still be very interesting.
But as Francisco mentioned, in developing worlds, that's still an issue. Cost is still an issue. Cost. But it's coming, and we've got to stay positive.
Let me say,
right?
cost is the overall cost. And knowing that HFCs are becoming more and more expensive in Europe and in the world, so the maintenance cost can be a point of advantage for a CO2 system this time.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Are there any questions from the floor, or any comments, last comments from any of the panelists? Any things that you wanted to say but you forgot to say? Finn?
I've removed my mic. take it off. I think I just wanted to echo what you were saying from UNIDO. I mean, what we're seeing now, the Montreal Protocol has a global HFC phase down, but developing countries don't have to freeze their HFC production and consumption till 2024. So really the phase down, it's great, it's a good start, but the job is not done. And the challenge, as you say, is we have to leapfrog. We have to avoid developing countries investing in this redundant, old, dirty technology. And we have to think about how we can go straight from R22 away from HFC. So that's the big challenge that we're looking at, and as an environmental organization, call on you guys to help support as well.
Oh, very courageous. You're going to get an extra drink.
Is it possible to capture CO2 from the atmosphere and use it as a refrigerant?
There's a company in Switzerland working on that. Yeah, there's actually a company, I forget their name, but and there's another one in Canada, I believe. There's a couple of companies trying to capture CO2 and then creating refrigerant grade CO2 out of it. I don't know how, but that's very energy intensive though, so I don't know how, from a life cycle point of view, how that's sustainable. But there are people working on that, but maybe you have a comment.
No, I have seen a few days ago in an agriculture, in a farm in Italy, they are studying now, they produce biogas. And biogas from anaerobic fermentation is rich in CO2. So they divide the CO2 from CH4, from methane gas, with a molecular barrier. So this is like a ceramic filter with which they separate CO2. So now they are studying the way in which to reuse the CO2. So it will be interesting because this way we can have also renewable CO2 because it comes from, but is all in study today.
There's definitely an opportunity there. You were going to say something else, no?
Oh, that's perfect. Thank you.
All right. Any comments? Good. Okay. All right. So a round of applause, please, to everyone. So, thank you. We got one last presentation. We're a Baker Refrigeration. Ah, there you are. So I think you're coming up here. You got a few slides. They're celebrating 100 years. Big partnership with EPTA in Australia. For the Australians or for the people down under, you should know this guy. He's pretty well known, right? He's spoken at quite a few Atmosphere Australias. I think probably all of them, right?
Yeah, nearly all of them.
Yeah. So it's so it'd be good to hear a little bit about what your experience is. So,
sure.
Round of applause, please, to Mike.
Thanks, everyone. From as Mark said, we're a 100-year company this year. So we started obviously that long ago. Where's my little clicker? I need my clicker. Pointer clicker. Oh. So who are we? We're AJ Baker. We're just a small business in Australia that started in refrigeration nearly 100 years ago. We started as a trading business with our grandfather. He thought he could sell soap and paper and all sorts of other things in Perth, a little country town in Western Australia. 1931, we sold our first fridge. We're very happy about that. 1955, we actually sold and installed our first supermarket in Western Australia. From there, we started getting bigger, looking at more markets that we could do. We actually built our own packs in our little warehouse in Perth. 1973, 37 years ago, started our relationship with EPTA. So it's been a long journey with EPTA as well. So we've grown from a small company, and we've grown with EPTA as well. 2003, we started our interstate expansion from a small little town in Perth all the way around. We now have an office in every capital city in Australia. 2009 was our first Cascade CO2 pack, an installation that we did in Perth. 2013, our first CO2 transcritical system we put in. And since then, we've gone from strength to strength. And 2020, 100 years fresh. So where are we? we went from this little tiny place on the corner in the centre of the city, selling little domestic fridges back in the 30s, to this now. We're a fourth generation family business, 6 states, 6 offices, 245 employees. So we've grown with the world, we've grown with Australia, we've grown with our retailers and our customers. So what do? We started like this, little baby refrigeration, moved into pubs. Everyone loves a pub, a fridge in a pub. You've got to have cold beer. That's the thing that makes the beer cold. We all know that. That's a compressor system we did back in the 30s. We made our own racks. We thought we can do this. We can use the expertise that our compressor manufacturers give us to start doing our own. So then we went into, obviously, refrigeration with cabinets, installations, and now growing with our customers. Other things we do, air conditioning. Many years ago, we built our own air conditioners, sit on top of cases. We know how hot Australia is. I'll get to that a bit later on. Again, 60s, 70s, building our own refrigeration systems, up to now systems that we get from our suppliers, obviously, to do massive supermarkets. So that's a supermarket in Western Australia. We put the system in there. We do other things. We thought we could buy and sell cabinets. You might as well sell a case if you want to make things cold. So little baby ones over the years, bringing systems in from the eastern states of Australia into the west. And then from there, partnering with our European suppliers, we went further and further to bring European-style cabinets to Australia. Nice little... We push our suppliers to make things that are a little bit out of the ordinary. So an outside refrigerated corner in a little country town 2 hours south of Perth. We do other little things. We import food service equipment, ice machines for over 40 years, but we'll forget about that. That's a small part of our business, but I must admit, one of our big things that we want to celebrate are our customers. They're the people that help us grow, and they're the people that give us the opportunity to bring in new technologies. So big and small, big ones up the top, the little ones down the bottom, they all matter. It doesn't matter how big or small you are, everyone's a customer to us. So our jump into CO2. 2009, as I said, our first Cascade, a refurbishment in the store. The store kept running. We put in the CO2 Cascade pack in the back from EPTA, and we built our own racks in the foreground for the 1348 Cascade. Since then, we're over 400 packs that we've installed around the country. EPTA have been a wonderful partner with us to design bespoke packs for our customers in Australia. We've installed nearly 300 of these across the country, designed to what our customer wants. And again, going forward with Cascade, top and bottom packs that give us a full solution for a supermarket. 2013, our first CO2 transcritical store. Again, a refurbishment. Why not? Why start with a greenfield site where you can do it the hard way? So we installed this. Nice big supermarket, little tiny one. That was our next store that we did. Again, a small... Oh yeah, it was another refurb, that's right. So we don't worry about building new stores. But in Australia, you all say, will it work when it's hot? And we all know how hot it's been in Australia. We saw the slide before about our wildlife. Just a bit of information. This is the heat map for the last 3 months in Australia. December, the hottest temperature in Australia was 49.9 degrees. That was in the middle of the desert. Okay, fair enough. You're not going to have a supermarket there. In January, the highest temperature in Australia was 48.9 in Western Sydney. So it's not in the middle of nowhere. This is west of Sydney, about 30 kilometres from the coast. So how does that work? What do we have to do to make it work? So we did some trials. We talked to our friends in EPTA. What can we do? Okay, we'll start simple. We'll spray some water on it, like we all do with the own HFC system when it gets a bit hot. Spray a bit of water. No, let's get a bit smarter. Let's put some things in that helps the gas cooler temperature. And it's all about gas cooler temperature with ambient. So we tried some subcoolers. Water sprays, water pads, again, it's using water. It's using a resource that isn't finite. So, okay, what else can we do? Parallel compression, we all know about parallel compression. It does help. But the problem is that we found is it's flash gas. So what do we do with flash gas? Well, we'll put a parallel compressor in. No, let's not. Let's get rid of the flash gas. Why have it? If you don't have it, you don't have to get rid of it. So our first work we did with EPTA was FTE. 3 years ago, you saw the little stealth bloke on the corner on the right-hand side. That was at EuroShop 3 years ago. We partnered with EPTA. We had a system running before EuroShop 3 years ago. Since then, we've put 12 systems in all around Australia, all working wonderfully, at least 10% reduction in energy. So, as I said, now we've got 27 systems. Small ones, big ones, little ones, all parts of the country, city, country, wherever you want to see them, we put them in. The climate, you need to make sure you either don't get sunburnt or you don't get wet. So, we work with EPTA for that. So again, our smallest system, 4 kilowatts, 70 kilowatts MT. Our largest system is over 200 MT kilowatts. So we, again, want to push, as we said before, we want to push into smaller markets. We want to talk to all of our customers to get this system across the line. The ETE system, we've had 4 systems in with EPTA's assistance for over 6 months. Again, the partnering with EPTA has allowed us to bring this technology to Australia and to our customers to increase the energy efficiency. So, ETE, we spoke about this before. No limit to the ambient temperature. We can put it in wherever we want. 100% natural, no flammable refrigerants. We believe we don't have to need an external subcooler. We use the internal subcooling of the ETE system. No water. We don't need to use water. We've been challenged by one of our major customers. I don't want to use water. It costs money. Especially in Australia, we've got a big island. We're a big island. There's a lot of water around. It costs a lot to desalinate that water. It's a light industrial system, so it's not only used for MT, but we've used it in an LT booster system as well. And it actually helps us, along with FTE, to make the energy efficiencies there. The main thing was oil management. You know, there's always issues with other technologies about where's the oil go. FTE and ETE make sure that the oil is encapsulated where it needs to be, where the compressors are. One of our systems, Ellenbrook, this is one of our first systems that we did with the ETE. We're seeing some wonderful achievements in there. It's a small store, maximum external temperature 47.5 degrees. So it's not as if it's in southern Tasmania somewhere, right down the bottom of Australia. No. This store's actually in Perth. So you can see the benefits. Whoops, wrong side. You can see the benefits of having the subcooler actually operational. We're seeing, in some cases, 30 degrees differential in the gas cooler outlet temperature for those technical people. And that's a massive saving in energy. If you don't have the flash gas, you don't need to get rid of it. That's what we keep saying. That's enough. We all need a drink. Thanks one and all. Thanks for everybody. Thanks to EPTA and Checo for giving me the opportunity to talk.
Well done. Well done. Exciting stuff. I believe we have a little surprise.
Hello.
Oh, Marco.
Thank you, Mike.
We need Peter here as well, Marco.
Thank you very much, because I believe that for us, for EPTA, is really great to have you here on the stage.
As well with Peter Baker, my brother,
much.
celebrated a small event last year of 50 years in our business. So half the year.
Very, very well. We are also a family-owned business. Yes. So we are quite proud to see what you were able to develop. Also because 100 year, 4th generation is not that easy. No. We know perfectly. And we know perfectly also that passing through high and bad time, because when there is 100 years, there is surely both.
It's not always
as always. And being near to you, we are proud to make something for you. So we have a little present. is a little present for you.
Peter, you can take that one.
And I want to read a proud history in refrigeration, a pioneer in CO2 technology, advancing the natural refrigeration ideal in the southern hemisphere for the benefit of all, naturally, because this is what you were able to do. And so thank you very much.
Marco, thank you as well. Fantastic.
I am really proud about this because there is an exploit, and I believe always that this kind of innovation, of advancing, is done due to the fact that you and we together, we don't stop in front of difficulties. We continuously are able to grow and to face the difficulties and overcome. And with this new solution, I believe that we give to everybody the possibility to apply something simple, easy to use, and also available everywhere, also in a very, very hot climate like you experienced directly. Thank you very much, William.
Thank you, Marco. Thank you, guys. Just one last word. My last word is drinks over there in the back from now till when they run out, and we have a lot. So please join us for drinks, and thank you again all for being here tonight. Thank you, Sheko, for organizing. Thank you, Mark. This has been great, very interesting, and of course, thank you all for being here tonight, and let's continue with some drinks. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.